This is the vocabulary breakdown for Chapter 8, and this is where we learned third conjugation, so there's going to be a lot of verbs in this chapter. Alright, so we'll go ahead and start with our nouns, and I don't have a lot of things to say about these, but let's go ahead and go through them really quickly. The first one is a name, the name of Marcus Tullius Cicero, and Cicero was a Roman orator, and it's Ciceronis, masculine. Our next word is copia, copiae, feminine. In the singular, it means abundance or supply. For example, cornucopia is the horn of abundance or plenty, the horn of plenty. And then in the plural, copiae, copiarum, it means supplies, troops, or forces. Troops is a pretty good word to remember for that one. Or supplies, of course. So remember that it has a split meaning for the singular and the plural, like other words we've learned. So that's copia. Frater, fratrus, masculine, means brother. So you can think of words like fraternity, for example, or fratricide, which is the killing of a brother. Laus, laudus, feminine, means praise, glory, or fame. So, for example, if you graduate magna cum laude, and this is a long A, just so you know, that means you graduate with magna, great, laude, praise. So you graduate high up in your class with a lot of praise. It is related to the verb laudo that we learned in our first chapter. Libertas, libertatis, feminine, means liberty, and it is related to the adjective liber, that means free. And with the TAS ending that we learned in the 7th chapter, that's an abstract feminine ending for third declension. So this is the abstract quality of being free or liberty. Then we have ratio, rationis, feminine. It means reckoning, account, reason, judgment, consideration, system, manner, or method. It's a big one. So watch out for ratio. Don't get too overwhelmed with that. Usually I like to choose one or two words and kind of remember those and see if they fit. So you might want to think of maybe like reason and then maybe judgment or method. Those are three pretty good words there. Scriptor, scriptoris, masculine, means writer or author. It's related to a word we'll learn shortly, a verb, scribo, which means to write. Soror, sororis, feminine, means sister, like a sorority or sororicide, which I don't think I've ever seen that word in English, but it does mean killing of a sister. And you might want to group frater with soror, because they're kind of related there, just in terms of brother and sister. And then lastly, victoria, victoriae, feminine, it means victory. So someone who is victorious is full of victory, or the name victory. It's related to a verb we'll learn shortly, winco, which means to conquer. The next word we've got here is dum. It's a conjunction that means while, as long as, at the same time that. So for example, I was cooking food while my sister went to the store, or something like that. And this part right here where it says plus the subjunctive, it means until. Ignore that. That's not something that you're going to learn until second semester Latin. So for right now, for the sake of simplicity, just sort of ignore that. Then we have two prepositions right here. We have ad, that takes the accusative. It means to, up to, or near to. So as we've discussed in the past, prepositions that take the accusative oftentimes have the sense of motion. So this is in the sense of place to which you are moving to a place. It is oftentimes used as prefixes, and when it's used as a prefix, it will oftentimes be assimilated. And if you break up the word assimilated, you see the simil base, so it will be made similar to what it's going with. So, for example, ad capio will change to accipio with a C and a C. Ad pello will change to appello with two P's. So it will become assimilated to be similar to what it is being used with. Ex or a is a preposition with the ablative that means out of, from, or from within. It can also mean by reason of or on account of. And then this part right here, following cardinal numbers, it can mean of. That's later on in the semester, so don't worry about that until later on in the semester. It can also be used as a prefix. So, for example, excipio, educo, eventus, and so forth. We'll get some of those words later on. Then we have a couple of adverbs right here. We have numquam and tamen. Numquam means never, tamen means nevertheless or still. And lastly, we start our verb list. First up is ago, agora, agi, octum. It means drive, lead, do, act, or pass, spend, life or time or something like that. The general idea of ago is that you have motion of some sort. It can be motion through space, like drive or lead, or it can be motion through time, as in I pass my youth in Rome or something like that. So this word, a lot of times you will get the sense of how to translate it based off of the accusative direct object that is being used with ago. So watch out for ago. Also watch out for this idiom right here. The Romans, the way that they said thanks or I thank you, they would say gratias agora. So they would say to lead or drive thanks towards someone, almost as though thanks is a commodity that you throw at someone when you want to thank them. Watch out, it comes with the dative. So if I want to say, I thank my mother, for example, then you would say, ago, I drive gratias. And then whoever the person is, you will put it in the dative indirect object. So mother, for example, would be matri. The last word we have on this list right here is demonstro, demonstrare, demonstravi, demonstratum. And it means to point out, show, demonstrate, etc. So that one shouldn't be too hard for you to remember. And I forgot the long mark right there. All right, before we get into the actual definition of the last verbs we have on our list, I want to look at the first two to make sure everybody understands the difference between third conjugation and second conjugation. So remember, you always look at your second principal part, cut off the infinitive ending, so we have ere, short ere, I should mention. Whereas in the second word right here, we have docera, where cut off the infinitive ending, we have a long ere. So disco is from third conjugation with the short e, whereas dokeo is from second conjugation with the long e. If that's confusing, come chat with me. All right, so the first word is disco, discora, didiki. It only has three principal parts, so you don't need to learn a fourth one, and it means learn. So earlier we had the noun discipulus and discipula. So a discipulus is literally a little learner. So that's what that means. Next word is dokeo, dokera, dokui, doctum, and it means to teach. So for example, someone who is docile is someone who is teachable, a teachable person. Duco, ducera, duxi, doctum. It means to lead, consider, regard, and prolong's really not too common. So I wouldn't worry about memorizing that if you're having trouble with vocab memorization. And I would really focus on lead and consider as your two top choices. We have a lot of English derivatives here. For example, seduce is to lead, oops, sorry, it should be cut at the D, is to lead someone away. Next is gero, gerera, gessi, gestum. It has a lot of different connotations: carry, carry on, manage, conduct, wage, accomplish, perform. So for example, you can wage war or manage affairs. It almost has the same sort of diversity as our English word do, like I do my hair, but I also do my finances or something like that. So watch out for gero, a lot of different translations. You'll just have to use context to choose the one that you think works best. Scribo, scribera, scripsi, scriptum means to write or compose. Lots of derivatives here, so it shouldn't be too hard to remember. The hardest thing is going to be able to remember, let me write this out, the base. So remember, the base is scribe. with the be. Because if you forget the be is part of the base, you may think that this is the future tense from first and second conjugation. Same with the word scribunt, which is the third person plural present active indicative. They write or are writing. Here you may think it is your bow bunting future tense marker. So this is, you may think it is they will write, but be careful, okay? So the be is part of the base. Do not confuse it with the future tense marker of first and second conjugation. I'm going to put a big cross off because I don't want you to confuse that. And just remember the base is scrib with the be. Next is traho, trahara, troxy, troctum. It means to draw, drag, derive, or acquire. So, for example, a tractor is something that drags in the earth to make lines or something. Lastly, winko, winkera, wiki, wictum means to conquer or overcome. So, for example, we have the word invincible, which is, let me break it up, not able to conquer someone. Someone who is invincible is unconquerable. And that's the end of our vocab for this chapter. I also don't have anything special after this point, so this is the end of the presentation.